My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this is News from the Can. This is more or less of an update, I guess. I've seen that some people are looking at some of these videos here, Avocapocalypse. And Avocapocalypse and Missing Flies, Canary in a Coal Mine, that's from about 4 years ago. I want to say maybe 2017, somewhere in there. The flies came back. So just, I never did a follow-up to the follow-up on that, but we were missing flies and Cuban May Beetles, which are plentiful in this area around the month of July, May, June. They're May beetles, so it's May and June. You got June bugs and things like that, which I haven't seen a June bug in quite a while. And so we've seen some of these bugs return. In fact, this year we had, in the Gainesville area, we had a bumper crop of Cuban May Beetles, which are the little black. It's pictured right here on Avocapocalypse. This is the bug that I'm basically referring to. And the ones that I'm looking at are more of a black color than the brown color that you see right there on the avocado. I can't zoom in on it because it keeps loading. Yeah, May beetles are not known. So they're not known to be a vector for Laurel Wilt. Apparently, the Laurel Wilt is a disease. It's like a fungus that's killing off a lot of avocado trees and things like that of a similar, laurel trees. But apparently it's a big problem there for a while. I'm not really sure what they did about it. But anyway, at this time, I think we could probably attribute that die-off or that lack of beetles and bugs and flies to drought at that particular time. But I ran into a woman in the supermarket who worked for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Service, who said that there was a noticeable decline in insect species across the board. And I had seen some literature at that time that we'd lost 3/4 of the biomass of insects overall across the globe in the past 20 or 30 years, which is astounding. And, a lot of that is probably, frankly, from genetically modified crops. So, there's a cancer is supposedly there's a cancer rate of 50% or something like that in the coming years. Supposed to be a cancer rate of 50%, something like that. They were finding glyphosate in breakfast cereal for a while there because of how they were using the way they grow the genetically modified crops is that they spray the shit with, it's resistant to, and they actually spray the crops to cut down on the weeds, and they do it at a particular time when they're getting ready to harvest. And then there's also antifungal stuff that they spray on the crops, or they used to. I don't know if they still do it or not. And this information is a few years old. And this is because if it rains, when you're harvesting certain grains, they're sensitive to and having mold and fungus and things like that growing on them, which I guess can ruin your harvest. So there are these things that they do, or used to do, and it would leave a residue of glyphosate and other materials in your breakfast cereal, which is kind of astonishing. Made me grateful that I really don't eat cereal, except for some occasional oatmeal, that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's a learning curve. So my thought about that is to have bug highways, swaths of real estate across the country that are not just like plots of land, but whole super high, basically the width of a super highway, where it's green in a favorable direction, insect and bird migration. So basically big, 4-lane highway wide swaths of area where you can't spray it, you can't touch it, you can't, the only thing you might be able to do is some fire mitigation type of stuff, maybe cleaning out some underbrush here and there and stuff like that, but to basically leave it safe for birds and bees and animals and insects. But a swath, so that it goes from north to south, basically, roughly, or whatever the in a direction that is favorable to migration patterns, and that would help stave off some of that loss. Because what's happening, if you've got an ocean of monocrop that's deadly to insects, that's just miles and hundreds of miles across. In other words, every surface that a bug is going to land on, everything that a bug is going to eat over millions of square acres is going to kill them, then of course you're going to have a loss of biomass, and you're going to lose some birds. Lately, something's been killing birds, songbirds, across the country. A little blurb I saw somewhere. I don't have any links for that, but this is something that comes and goes from time to time. Birds, they get diseases, they get pandemics like human beings do, which is why they were saying, look, it's a contagion. It's something that they have get some funk in their eyes, and then they die. So that's why you never want to let your kids or your animals touch, a dead bird laying on the ground. It's funny because I found a dead bird on my mother's property probably a couple of months ago, and of course I immediately scooped it up and put it safely in the garbage. But that was my immediate thought. I'm like, well, there it is. It was further back. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm like, well, so that's coronavirus. Most of these bugs, COVID-19 is not the only frickin' virus that can kill you out there. I mean, there's a lot of diseases out there. There are bird flus that are a lot deadlier than COVID, and swine flus. These are bugs that have mortality rates in the 80 percentiles, So the Chinese, when you're looking at certain scarcities, this thing that was going on with BlackRock, this deal here, Tucker's railing against BlackRock because of their buying up all the single-family homes in certain areas and driving up the price of real estate. Some of that's political game. People want to basically sabotage Joe Biden's agenda at every possible turn. So if they can fake up some inflation, then they're going to do it however they can do it. And buying up real estate and things like that is one way to do that. I mean, that's possible. But it just so happens that BlackRock is also all in on climate change. So that's important. And they're people don't like them because I guess they were building some roads and stuff in Brazil. I watch Just Have a Think pretty regularly. I really like this guy. He's got a niche that's fertile ground. I mean, there's a lot of material, and this guy puts up some really well made. He does this thing really well. He's talking about Brazil. I'll put a link to this one right here in the description. And this has to do with deforestation, and this is one reason why that people are pissed off at BlackRock, because of deforestation. Deforestation in this area is bad news. Okay, here's this graphic here with the death zone. This is what I'm really getting to in this particular video, what I really want to get to. So right in this supposed death zone, which they could turn it, if they keep deforesting Brazil, they could turn that into a death zone for sure. But this is cutting right across Democratic Republic of Congo, and it ain't that hot there. And the reason for that is this. I'm going to show you this in a second. But this is sort of a misnomer. The equator becoming death zone hot. It's a little bit of a misnomer. The death zone is much further north. It has to do with airflow and things like that, so it's a complicated mix. There are a lot of factors at play here, but my contention for a long time has been that this death zone is sort of mislabeled because of what's going on up in the stratosphere. But I want to show you this one graphic here. He's showing the fires. Not lovely graphics. Mr. Borlace really has it together, that's for sure. I think the little squares there are dams, and that's really what I'm looking for. He does a layout, and it says these are all the dams. He's talking about how the rainforest was a sink, a carbon sink for a long time. Well, because of all the dams they're building in Brazil, because of all the network of rivers in the Amazon system. So what happens is that it just turns the landscape into this. Right? And it ends up turning the land from a carbon sink into a carbon source. So let's have a shot of that. But let me get back to this real quick. So here's this. He did another video about, I think, wet bulb temperatures or something that has a very similar, here it is right here, wet bulb, right? So that's what they are referring to as the death zone. And so that's a kind of a misnomer. The death zone, to me, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, your death zones are going to be where the people who are going to have a hardest time with temperature swings in general. That's going to be between 30 degrees, roughly 30 degrees and 60 degrees north latitude, as we just seen with this. And I bring this up because I'd mentioned this in a previous video. There's you get an intuitive sense that the equator is where the death zones are going to be, but because of this is at the 50 hectopascal level. Greenhouse gas in the stratosphere causes global cooling, depending on the latitude. Around the equator, it will actually cause global cooling. See, there's the Congo. We were just talking about the Congo. And it's anomalously cool right there in the middle of Africa. Now, you know, these trends can change on a dime. There's like a lot of really complicated shit going on in the atmosphere. But I say this to point out that because of this preponderance of greenhouse gas that's here, and you can see that it's a lot worse. This video is from November 28th, last November, and that's what it looks like. Okay? This is from November 28th. That's what that image looks like. This is 50 hectopascals. Same spot, and that's what it looks like now. So, and also, this is in the middle of the pandemic. This is in the middle of the pandemic. And it actually kind of sort of like, that image subsided. The truth is overrated. The level had subsided a little bit during the pandemic. So this is halfway through the pandemic. Halfway through the worldwide shutdown, right? Of mechanized shutdown of the world. You see this. I got a few more dislikes than likes, you know, because truth is a fly in the ointment. You know, there's a lot of people making money. This is something Greta Thunberg was talking about recently. You know, that it's an opportunity for people to make money. You know, if it's a fucking big business orgy, that's all well and good as long as it's really serving, as long as it's doing something about this shit right here. I'm sorry, man, but that's, you know. And do tell me, leave a comment. If you look on your phone and you see 600 parts per million, please leave me a comment and let me know that that's what you're seeing. You know, and these guys need to know about this. But I don't see anybody wholesale arguing about this product. This product is, you know, here it is. Europe's Eyes on the Earth, Atmospheric Monitoring Service. So this is, what this is this is part of their forecasting system. Their medium range weather forecasting system. It's part of that. So they look at air quality and things like that. And over the years, and I've been watching this over the years, and that's pretty fucking ridiculous. And however you want to interpret the 1,000 parts per million, it's more than 350. Remember the guy that used to have the 350? It was an organization called the 350 something or another. 350 is back here in the blue. 390. See this blue green right here? That's 398 right here, down here in the legend. What this tells you is that the needle is pegged. That's what they're saying. To me, maybe they're just saying it to maybe this entire website. It's possible. Now listen, it's possible. It's possible using a little artificial intelligence and stuff like that to shunt material. This is what people need to understand about the World Wide Web. You watching this right now are at a digital address, and it's possible for a machine to take material from one source and shunt everything that this AI wants you to see. They shunt all that material to you. So, at the same purported source, right? They could be like showing this image that you see here to me and showing everybody else some other image from a different source, from a mirrored source. There's such a thing as source mirroring. They say, oh, well, we want to show this guy this shit, and then we're going to show everybody else because we want to discredit that whole thing. Or, it's like really... By the way, but as far as discrediting and things like that, I have had human intelligence people in my social environment doing things, One dude been telling people that I'm like a racist. And then other people are saying that I have some sort of, that I'm like a feminist, or an anti-feminist or some shit like that, patriarch type of person. I've got people that I know that are communists, and they're like particularly hostile. Let me tell you something about the communists. The communists want communist people want, in the United States, wherever they are, whether it's Russell Brand or whoever, they want the bottom to fall out. They want to break capitalism and then move in for a revolution. That's been the stated purpose for a long time. So they love Donald Trump. They support Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump back in the Oval Office to break, so that in hopes that he will smash the that he'll break the system, and then they can come back in and reform it the way that they want it. But at the same time, on the other side, what's they're being manipulated. Those people are being manipulated because the owners of production, the big people, the owners of the plants, the meat plants, the battery factories and shit, they want cheap labor. But it's not just cheap labor. They want to order people to go to work when those people have to face death in a pandemic. We've already seen that this past year. So that requires fascism, which fascism at its core is corporate feudalism. That's what it basically is. And a lot of the companies that were around, that were started or were around back during the Third Reich are still in business. Fanta, I don't know if Fanta's still in business, but some of those. I think Puma and Nike and shit. Aren't those like German companies? So maybe not really sure, but that's all about power. And because when population goes down, power shifts to the left, to labor. And fascism, Nazism has always been a battering ram against socialism. That's what it's for. Cheap labor, get people to go to work. Your small business owners, that's what they're all about. They don't give a fuck about anything. They want the people, they hate the fucking checks, the stimulus checks and all that stuff, because then people don't have to go to work. They don't really like the New Deal stuff, a lot of it, because, it's hard for them to find people to go to work. But, small business owners have it hard because of the workers' comp. They have to pay to hire. The money they have to lay out to hire one fucking person, and then they might not show up. They might be on drugs or whatever. The labor pool that they're drawing from is not reliable, and then they've got to fork over all this cash just to turn that crank one time. And then, so they end up having to hire a payroll company, and so that's another third party. That's another middleman you got to pay just to be in business. There's all these middlemen that you got to pay to be in business and stuff. So it's either you got to do that, or you got to go off the books and shit with people, and it's a real pain in the ass. So that's the thing. If Joe Biden wants to solve a problem of all the many problems out there that have to be solved, make it easier for small businesses to be able to hire and fire people. We need a better system than this, fucking workers' comp thing that doesn't function very well anyway. It's bizarre. It's run by states, individual states and shit, and, it makes it hard for small businesses to get going. It keeps people out. It's another gatekeeper to keep people out of the fucking thing. So, So, and I think that's it. Cuban May Beetles are back in spades this year. We have had a lot of rain, so that's probably was because of a drought way back when these videos were put up. It was a long time ago. I'm a real small-time investor. And people looked at it and all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls from people I haven't seen in years, people looking for, I don't know what, but the legend, if it's different on your phone, if you look on your phone and instead of 1,000 parts per million over here on the legend, you see 600, please leave a comment. Let me know what's up. And just go ahead and run through this real quick. So, yeah, the zonal wind up here, this changes up in the northern hemisphere. You see this surf zone up here that's basically moving from east to west. It's letting you know that the gas is moving from the pole towards the equator. So, and the theory is that that has to do with methane coming up from permafrost. Methane and carbon dioxide, frankly, coming up from permafrost, and there's a lot of oil and gas exploration up there, especially in Russia. So, these zonal winds is somebody who did, and I think I'll have to find that link. But somebody at NCAR was talking about how these zonal winds change, and they're measuring between 10 hectopascals and 50 hectopascals, which is a very small amount of pressure. And so anyway, depending on what the latitude is, greenhouse gas in the stratosphere causes global cooling, especially around the equator at this level. Then you know it's in the stratosphere. As you go further north, there are other gases that come into play. Ozone. Sometimes there's a lot of ozone, but you can see that this sort of shifts to the north, right? Which is weird because it's in the summertime, but 500 hectopascals is kind of close to where the tropopause is. The tropopause dives down a little bit as you go further north. So 850 hectopascals, which I think is 1,200 feet up, something like that. Now you see that the carbon dioxide is much lower, and it's because it's in the summertime. The plants are munching out on carbon dioxide. Now you also see over here that carbon dioxide is higher where they're having an enormous drought on the west coast of the United States and Mexico. But it rises and falls because that's plant photosynthesis and respiration. But wow, that's pretty. These areas where the CO2 is much less is pretty persistent there. And then you hit the surface. Wow. Yeah. So. All right. In any case, let's look at that ozone forecast. Ozone is a footprint of methane, natural gas leaks, which is a lot less. I've had some videos that I've done like months, years ago, where the ozone level was just like ridiculous. Absurd. Okay. And you see that there's still a hole there. There's a little bit of an ozone hole over the equator, which lets you know that that carbon dioxide that you see there is significantly from methane. Oh, we got a little bit of bubble there at 300 hectopascal. This is 50 hectopascals is generally around 67-ish thousand feet. And I think 500 hectopascals is around 20-something thousand feet. 30,000 something feet. So that's between there, and 850 hectopascals is about 1,200 feet, something like that, 1,800 feet. So, and that's a greenhouse gas. So what you end up with, it's a little lower. So basically what you end up with is the greenhouse gases are closer to the surface as you go north. Formaldehyde, methane. Wow, yeah. So there you go. So listen, it's, wow, look at that surface level. Oh, and Greta Thunberg, you know, sweet child of God, you know, she's bitching, but I'm like, Greta, why don't you talk to, you know, you're from Sweden, why don't you talk to the big brass up in Sweden about this nice big blob of natural gas coming off of, you know, because Vattenfall does energy generation, contracts out for energy generation for a big chunk of Europe, Germany, I think even France, Belgium, Britain, you know, and other places. And they use a lot of natural gas. So you can see right there. This is at the surface level. I mean, damn, that's like almost as bad as India. Oh, look at this. This right here is that's from oil and gas production right there in the United States. Look right up there, right around where the Dakotas. That's right around where North South Dakota is right there. And of course you got the tar sands up there in Canada. So yeah. And China, forget about it. So yeah, I mean, there's Europe. You know, they're just spewing out methane gas, totally. A little bit. Right. 850 hectopascals, about 18,000 feet, somewhere in there. 1,800 feet, excuse me. It's like less than 2,000 feet. 500 hectopascals. So, you know, bottom line, the upshot is this.
We're taking a look at the one-day temperature anomalies.
This is temperature anomaly. So that's up by 30 degrees. It looks like 30 degrees over nominal, roughly, where that whitish area is up in Canada there. This is 40 degrees, I believe. The border of Canada and the United States, and then 60 degrees is above that latitude, north latitude. So this is what I'm talking about with when you're talking about death zones. That's high and low temperature swings. And this has to do with, you know, the weather systems, the polar vortex, the blocking highs getting locked into position because of the temperature differential between the oceans and the land and all that stuff. The heat capacity of the land is much less than that of the ocean, which means it's like a capacitor. The temperature can, if you have a lower heat capacity, it means the temperature can swing much higher and much lower in a shorter amount of time. Whereas with the ocean, when you're holding heat, then it can't do that. It's like a capacitor in that current precedes voltage with a capacitor, so you voltage, temperature, pressure. With a lower heat capacity, your temperature can go way up or way down. The desert has a low heat capacity, basically. So it gets real hot during the day and real cold at night. And that's what you're looking at. So there's some humidity considerations in there and stuff like that, but this is, these temperatures right here we're looking at are, as they say, are, millennial, 1,000-year temperature spikes. And the other thing too with that, we're seeing some rumbling going on. These earthquakes that are going on in California, I'm not gonna make a direct attribution to this necessarily, but it makes sense that because that level of heat that they're talking about is cracking the roads and stuff. It's causing the roads and the sidewalks and stuff to expand to the point that they're cracking and it's really messing them up. So it stands to reason that if you heat up the crust of the earth, then it might deform. There might be a certain amount of deformation there. And so that could potentially cause, loosen up different areas and allow the earth to move around. So, but anyway, that's all I got for now. My name is R. Crosby Allows. I love you guys. It is what it is. We're just going to do what we got to do, and that's all there is to it. I love you guys. There ain't no good guys, there ain't no bad guys. They're just you and me, and we may or may not disagree. And that's it. Take care of yourselves. And, it's always good to be prepared. Shortwave radio, ham radio is a good thing to have. Power, generation, batteries. Keep all that stuff charged. And, keep extra food and water and toilet paper and all that stuff, because you never know when the next shit hit the fan type of thing. You never know when God and the machine is going to show up next. And that's all. That's about it. My name is R. Crosby Lyles. This has been News from the Can for July 12th, 2021. That's it. See you. Bye.